Thank you for coming to this seminar today that we're going to give on the subject of lateral thinking. So, we're going to be discussing innovation and its relationship with Krishna consciousness. I was trying to think of a nice way to kind of enter into the subject matter. Let's see how many people there are in this group. 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay, I'll just throw out 3 puzzles to the group as a whole. These are they're kind of like riddles or puzzles. I'm going to give you a scenario and I'm going to ask you a question. Just try and work it out and jot down an answer or make a mental note of an answer. We'll do this for 3 different problems and then we'll discuss something about the solution also. So the first quiz or problem is as follows. So you're driving down the road. Right, this is for those of you who are married, imagine that you're not married for this one, right? So you're driving down the road in your car, and it's a wild stormy night, and you're actually passing by a bus stop. You see 3 people waiting at the particular bus stop. One person is an old lady who looks as if she's about to die. Okay, it's one of the people. The second one is an old friend who once saved your life. Okay, and the third one, this is not for the brahmachari so much, but this is your perfect partner that you've been dreaming of. Okay, knowing that there can only be one passenger in your car, who do you choose? Okay, knowing there can only be one passenger in your car, who do you choose?
Whoever can pay more.
Write down an answer, and then we'll go to the next quiz. Okay. I'll read the scenario again. So you're driving down the road in your car, and it's a very wild, stormy night. You pass by a bus stop. At the bus stop, you see 3 people. One person is an old lady who looks like as if she's about to die. The second person is an old friend who once saved your life. The third person is a perfect partner that you've been dreaming of. Okay? Now, knowing that in your car you can only have one passenger, who do you choose? Okay. Has everyone jotted down an answer to that particular scenario? Okay, good. Let's take the next one. So, acting on an anonymous phone call, the police raid a house to arrest a suspected murderer. Right? They don't know what the person looks like, but they do know that his name is John, and he's inside that particular house. Okay? They burst in on a carpenter, a lorry driver, a mechanic, and a fireman, all playing poker. Okay? Without hesitation or communication of any kind, they arrest the fireman. How do they know that they've got their man? Okay? I'll read this one out again. Acting on an anonymous phone call, the police raid the house to arrest a suspected murderer. They don't know what the person looks like. They don't know what he looks like, but they know that his name is John and he is inside the house. They burst in on a carpenter, a lorry driver, a mechanic, and a fireman, all playing poker. Without any hesitation or any communication, they arrest the fireman. How do they know that they've got their man? Okay. So write down an answer to that particular puzzle.
What's a lorry driver?
I'll try driving. Translate into a mirror. Try driving.
Whatever, everyone else was thinking the same thing.
I know.
No, it's just you, Brendan.
That was a taxi driver.
So everyone got something down for that particular scenario. And then the final one. Let's see how you do this one. A man and his son are in a car crash. The father is killed and the child is taken to hospital gravely injured. When he gets there, the surgeon says, "I can't operate on this boy, for he is my son." How can this be possible? I'll repeat it again. A man and his son are in a car crash. The father is killed, right? And the child is taken to hospital gravely injured. Now, when he gets there, the surgeon says, "I can't operate on this boy, for he is my son." How can this be the case? How can this be possible? Okay, so jot down an answer to that question. And we'll go through the solutions. Has everyone given an answer to the 3 different scenarios? Yes or no? Anyone who hasn't given an answer to all 3? Okay. Because you couldn't...
I missed the first one.
Oh, you missed the
sorry.
first one. Okay, that's cool. Let me give the first one again. Imagine you're not married to this one. You're driving down the road in your car on a wild, stormy night, and you pass by a bus stop and you see 3 people at the bus stop. One is an old lady who looks as if she's about to die. The second person is a friend of yours who actually saved your life, who once saved your life. And the third person is the perfect partner that you've been dreaming of. Right? Now, knowing that there can only be one passenger in your car, who do you choose? Okay. Did anyone else miss any of the scenarios? Okay, so let's go through the answers. I'm interested to know what your answer was for the first scenario. So we had these 3 people, the old lady who seems as if she's about to die, your old friend who saved your life once, and the perfect partner that you've always been wishing, that you've been meditating on, that you've been thinking about desiring. Who did you choose, knowing that you can only have one passenger in the car? Who was chosen? Any responses? You chose the old lady? Okay, so let me get this. So you got the old lady into the car and drove off with the old lady?
Well, it's in the hospital.
Okay. No, that's really thinking naturally. Okay, cool. Who else chose the old lady? I'm just curious. Okay, who made a different choice? Okay, so Ricken, who did you choose?
The best friend.
Okay. What was your reasoning?
It was definitely the first person that came to mind of the 3. So I went with that.
Okay. But why? It was the first person that came to mind for what reason? What was the thinking behind that?
Because I know that person the best of the 3.
Okay. Yes.
I also chose the friend.
Okay, why?
Out of a sense of like reciprocation, like you said that the friend saved my life. So
you felt you owed that person something?
yeah, sort of, yeah.
Who else?
The
Yes.
same reason, like, as a mark of gratitude, because he saved my life. So I want to, like, reciprocate and help him out.
Okay. Did anyone choose the perfect partner? Okay, so Rosalie, what was the reason?
Oh, no, you don't answer the reason. You want to ask
No, I'm not asking you.
Well,
I got your name is. What was the reasoning behind the perfect partner?
You go ahead. No, you go first. I insist.
No, Rosalie, and I'll ask.
I figured that if I took the perfect... Oh, no, I figured that if the best friend is owes me a favor or I owe him a favor?
Well, the best friend is the person who saved your life in the past.
Okay, so then my rationale doesn't work, but I was thinking that he would have helped the old lady too, and so then I could have picked up the old partner.
Ah, okay, interesting. So what was your reasoning?
Well, I chose the perfect partner because life is short, and I mean, and I never really thought about it before in my life. So now it's like it was something that I thought about.
Okay, I'm going to give you a hint, and let me just take this on board and then see if it changes your answer. But first, the other opponent had his hand up.
Well, I also went with the same, surprisingly,
Uh-huh.
the perfect partner.
Okay.
For me, the perfect partner was my spiritual master. When
Okay.
you said that, I thought of my spiritual master. I thought,
Let's go.
that would be
Saffron outside, saffron inside. But what was the reason?
Well, that's my spiritual master.
No, but why him? Still, even if it's your spiritual master, why your spiritual master as opposed to the person who saved your life, or the old lady who was about to die?
Well,
Was the
my
reason?
spiritual master was also, in one sense, in a deeper way, saved my life,
Mm-hmm.
and he's capable of saving so many others. So that's the greatest reciprocation I feel is towards my spiritual master.
Okay, that's cool. Let me add another. I'll add another point to this, in one sense. The other point is that in this scenario, you can do things in such a way that everyone is happy. Does that think about that? You can make a choice in such a way that everyone is happy. The old lady who's about to die, the perfect partner that you've been dreaming of, and your old friend who saved your life. Any ideas on any other possible solutions? Oh, quite a few people. Okay, Tulsinand.
Have them sit on some laps.
Okay. That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. Yes.
You get out, you get the friend who owed you something, you put him in the driver's seat, put the old lady in the driver's seat, and you and your partner go on the bus.
Does anyone else have that solution? You had the same idea?
You got the
Okay. That's actually a very good answer. Yes.
I was thinking about one at a time. Take them
Okay.
their destination one at a time.
Okay, but knowing that, let's say you were
Only
restricted to just one
one.
journey at that time.
Yeah.
That's actually the answer that's given. Right? That you get out the car, your old friend who saved your life, you give him the keys. Right? The old lady who's about to die, she gets in the passenger seat, and you stay with the perfect partner who you've been dreaming of. Because in that way,
That way everybody's happy.
everyone gets happy. Everyone gets something. Right? Not bad, not bad. What made you come up with that solution? How did you...
When you said everyone would be happy.
Yeah, the hint. Okay, cool. Let's go to the second scenario. Then we'll say something about these answers. So the second one was that there was an anonymous phone call. The police raided the house. They were acting on an anonymous phone call. The police raided the house. They were looking for a suspected murderer. They didn't know what he looked like, but they knew his name was John, and he was inside the house. They burst in on a carpenter, a truck driver, right, mechanic, and the fireman, all playing poker. Without hesitation or any kind of communication, they immediately arrested the fireman. How did they know they got their man? Let's see if you...
Because his name was on his helmet, on the clothes, like fireman clothes.
No, he wasn't wearing a helmet. There was no idea on the clothing. But that's not a bad answer. That's not bad. I can see you thinking outside the box. I like it. Yes.
The house was a firehouse.
No. That's crazy thinking. Yes.
He was the only man?
Yes.
He's got this.
Yes. So there was the carpenter, the truck driver, the mechanic, and the fireman. Right? So therefore, the other three were women. When the police came in, they saw there were three women and there was one man. So that's how they knew who to actually arrest. Because they knew the gender, but nothing. They knew the gender and the name, but nothing else about the person. Did anyone else get the same answer? Well, I'm curious as to the other answers that people got. So who else had an answer to that question? Who wrote something down or made some kind of guess? What was your answer?
The only thing I thought of was maybe the crime was fire related.
Yeah.
Okay, the fire thing was a big thing, right?
But then when you said that there was no differentiation in the clothing or something, I threw that up.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes, still seeing that. What's yours?
Because of his authority, he thought that maybe he couldn't get caught and he could get away with it.
I don't quite get the answer. What do you mean?
Because he's a firefighter. He has authority. No one would suspect that he was a murderer.
Well, you could argue the other way. You could say that, they still considered that this person in any profession, they could do that kind of activity. Did you have your hand up, Chitananda?
Yeah, mine was similar. It was like, when they burst in the room, he was the only one that was calm, cool, and collected. And the others were all riled. Or could have been riled. Like when you startle someone, some people who may not have known something or just there for the wrong reason will get automatically affected, and the person who knows why they're coming is more meditative or more.
Okay. But actually, as you stated, that was the only male. You have your hand up, Krishangi.
Yeah, half thought out.
Okay.
That maybe the fireman was one of the connected with the police people, and they arrested him thinking what the reaction would be to other people or something, and then get the other person.
That's not bad. That's actually quite lateral. I like that. I like that. It's wrong. But it's got some interesting, creative idea. Okay. Third one. A man and his son are in a car crash. The father is killed and the child is taken to the hospital and gravely injured. When he gets there, the surgeon says, "I can't operate on this boy for he's my son. How can this be possible?" This one's I think this one's more, this is the easier one of the three. Okay, so, yes.
I've heard it before, but
Okay.
should I say the answer or?
No bonus points for you now.
That's fine.
Okay, no, sorry, go on. Get the answer,
The
please.
surgeon was the boy's mother.
Yes. Did anyone get that one? Was anyone who didn't get that one? Just oh no, okay. What did you put down as an answer? Yes.
I put the granddad, so granddad, the son, and the three generations. So the son who was dead was actually the father was dead was actually son of granddad. So you could say that.
Okay. But why wouldn't it be able to operate on the boy, on the grandchild?
I thought the person who died was father, but his son, the granddad. So the surgeon was granddad. So it was his son who died. So he said I couldn't operate on my son. In the car there was father and son, and the surgeon was granddad.
But the son's one who was gravely injured and rushed to the hospital.
Dad is already dead.
Yeah, dad's already dead.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're saying maybe the surgeon was the grandfather.
Grandfather.
Yeah. But you see what I'm saying is that you had the father and son in the car. The father died, and that person who died, his son was actually rushed to the hospital. So if the grandfather's a surgeon, he's not operating on his child, he's operating on his grandchild.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay, but I see where you're going with that. Did anyone else have a different answer? Yes.
I'm just wondering why wouldn't the mother be more impelled to operate on? Doesn't she want to save her child's life?
It's going to be a long evening, isn't it? It's going to be a long evening. The point is that I think the idea is that ethically, because she's more emotionally involved, that someone else should perform the operation. That's the thinking behind it. Yes.
We have a real life example, my husband and I. Last month our son got really badly injured and he needed stitches, and we were wondering, should we take him to the ER and wait for hours and hours, or should my husband do the procedure himself? And it was like an emotional type of thing, do I attempt this on my own child? We ended up doing it, and thank God everything was okay, but I see why, the mother wouldn't want to.
Because the emotions are more involved, so you're less objective maybe. And that may also affect the precision with which the operation is performed. Okay. So it's interesting how you answered, or didn't answer, the scenarios. But this is an introduction into a certain way of thinking. The whole idea of this seminar, and in one sense, part of the excitement of being a devotee is being able to see things, understand things from a different perspective. I think Venkata, he sent an email out recently about the Dow Jones Dharma Index. So there's a company called Dharma Investments which has been set up by a devotee in the UK. And the whole idea is that they've teamed up with the Dow Jones so that they are creating, they track different kinds of goods which don't go against dharmic or, let's say, Vaishnava principles. So this is useful for people who are ethical investors, people who are devotees or within the Hindu tradition, and also those who are related to the Buddhist or the Jain, even Sikh faiths. And so it's a very brilliant, idea. In one sense, it's something that anyone could have thought of, but someone that particularly had that particular idea, vision, and made it a reality. What we're trying to, one of the objectives of today is to help you to understand that literally there are not millions, there are literally billions of these ideas. Right? And these ideas can be tapped into by devotees and can be utilized in such a way that we can really make a difference in this world. We want to open you up, we want to open up your minds to the possibility that there is a much greater scope to really implement the principles, values, ideas, concepts, and therefore also the influence of Krishna consciousness in this world. Prabhupada said this Krishna consciousness movement is a cultural movement for the re-spiritualization of the entire world society. Often we forget about it. We think that it's okay to just maintain, or that Krishna consciousness is about, small centers or whatever, but actually it's about the whole world. And it's about making a difference, a lasting difference in this world, not just for ourselves, not even for this particular moment in history, but for future generations. And every one of you have the ability, the aptitude, and the potential to make that happen. One of the things that block us in our movement, or that blocks anyone in their potential, is this like invisible ceiling in terms of our mentality. This is a major, major point. The way that people are controlled is primarily to do with conceptualization. In other words, if you shut down what people believe is possible for them, then you really invisibly bound their entire life. Does that make sense? There's some things people will never strive for, even give any thought to, if they don't believe it's even possible. They'll never really look into it, never really discuss it. There's some people who really don't believe that you can prove whether God exists. They've been brought up in the paradigm that it's belief. You believe or you don't believe, there'll never be any proof, and the only way you'll know is when you die. So that's their preconception, and it's very firmly placed in their consciousness. And therefore, they never ever really hear anything about spiritual science or strive to check, because it never even occurs to them that such things are possible. There was an experiment done with fleas. Fleas are actually able to jump very, great distances, great heights. So one experiment was done where they measured the height of the fleas jumping. It was like, let's say, 2 meters. Then they put that same flea, that same creature, in a particular case with a lid. So the case was about 1 meter in height. So the flea would continue to jump and it would always hit this top ceiling. So after a while they took the flea out and they put him back into a place where there was no limitation on the height, and the flea would only jump 1 meter, because it become conditioned to this idea that that's only as far as it can go. And that is actually what's happened to us. By various kinds of subtle means, we are holding on to various limitations which are not real. Various ideas that we have about Krishna consciousness are also unreal, in terms of its potential to be spread all over the world, to be truly accepted, taken seriously, honored and respected by society. We've all had sometimes experiences where people have not accepted Krishna consciousness, or they thought that you guys were a bit weird, right? You're a bit strange. Or their ideas or concepts were difficult for them to understand. So we are carrying so many samskars or thought patterns of limitation. But what we have to understand is that actually Krishna consciousness is not about what we think. It is about us striving to follow the instructions of the spiritual master and then working the miracle to make things happen which are beyond our expectations or imagination. It's what it means when we say Krishna consciousness is inconceivable. Inconceivable, the purport means it's not limited to what we think is possible. Because it's not us who are making it happen. That is why the codes of the scriptures are so powerful. If someone really believes the philosophy, there's no lids. Because someone who truly believes the philosophy truly understands that my job is to strive and do my best. The result isn't actually up to me. If I strive and do my best, results can come which are beyond anything I can possibly imagine. Okay? This is actually the real understanding or purport of Krishna consciousness. And what we're going to do today is to try and provide some solutions, some techniques which will allow you at will to think outside of the box. I was mentioning 26th Avenue, in Brooklyn Temple yesterday, and I've been mentioning to many devotees, your mission, the mission of our movement is to actually make Krishna consciousness, to inculcate, to implement or install Krishna consciousness in this world in a very deep and lasting way. Right? Part of the excitement and the exhilaration of spiritual life comes by the distribution of spiritual life. In fact, that is the key mechanism by which we maintain our Krishna consciousness and grow. And it is not going to be enough to maintain our Krishna consciousness. That's okay, and that's good. If we only do that, there's no one's going to complain. But as we said before, when people do not utilize their full potential, there will always be a sense of frustration. Right? There will always be a sense that you could have done more, that you didn't really express all of your potential, your power, your abilities, your God-given gifts. So we don't want to be people who fall into that category. By working collectively, by meditating, we want to see how we can spread this movement. And that is actually a symptom of an Uttamadhikari. Right? There are different symptoms of the different stages or levels of devotee. One of the symptoms of an Uttamadhikari is that he or she is always meditating on how to spread this Krishna consciousness movement. What that implies is that there's tremendous spiritual benefit to be had by meditating in that particular way. And if we develop that meditation, then also the Super Soul is there to give us additional guidance and ideas. Because Krishna in the heart is reciprocating with the desires that each and every single one of us have. Individually, collectively, as a movement, and in so many ways. Another point I'll make as a precursor is that in any yatra, you'll have challenges. Whether it's political challenges, devotees having conflicts, financial concerns, whatever it is, there'll be some kind of challenge. The attitude of thinking that there is always, if there's a problem, there must be a solution, is an attitude which is very rare in Kali Yuga. Most people, the attitude is, there's a problem, let me give up. Right? Or there's a difficulty, it's not going to work, let's just stop. But actually, part of the mentality of lateral thinking is that if there's a problem, there must also be a solution. One cannot exist without the other. And again, if we think like this, then we can start to see things creatively. Start to look outside the box to see the other possibilities. In fact, one of the necessities of anyone who wants to make serious spiritual advancement is to learn to enjoy the challenges. Because as we progress in spiritual life, there will be tests and challenges. We should expect them. So what happens is when people are new and they haven't developed sufficient maturity and consciousness, then when challenges come, we become disturbed. It's like I saw an article years ago about a Christian priest, and his daughter died in a car crash, and he became an atheist. because he had the wrong conception of God. His idea is God's like an insurance policy. I believe in God, so therefore only nice things should happen to me because I'm very godly. He thought that therefore there was some kind of protection. Bad things may happen to some sinful people, but I believe in God, so therefore things should be really good for me. And the moment that challenge came, that difficulty, he gave up God. We don't want to be in that category. But we should know that every time we try to make some movement out, to advance, to progress, Maya's job is to test us. How serious are you about making advancement? So therefore different challenges and tests will come, and if we expect them, they won't throw us off, they won't disturb us, we'll learn to utilize them to grow. Of course, the real thing about challenges and tests is we want to see what is Krishna trying to teach me through this experience. And whatever lesson he was trying to teach us, as we understand through Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, therefore we take that lesson and we grow from that particular situation. Does that make sense? So the first point I would make is that lateral thinking is really like an attitude, first of all. It is the awareness of possibilities, or the awareness of so many potential answers we may not be conscious of right now, or that we may not arrive at due to our normal logical sequence of thinking. This is the first point. Lateral thinking is like humor. So there's a story about Winston Churchill, and she said there's one lady who didn't like him, and she was in a conversation and she said to him, if you were my husband, I would feed you poison. I would poison your tea. That's what she said. And Winston Churchill told us, if I was your husband, I'd drink the poison. You know? So lateral thinking is like humor. You're thinking along one track, then you jump into another way of thinking, which when you bring it back, it makes sense after all. I mean, I'll go into more detail about it. That sounds very abstract. But what happens with all of us is that we have a tendency to think in a particular way. Krishna consciousness is definitely not what you think it is. Right? Doesn't matter what we think it is. Doesn't matter how big our ambitions are, because it's not conceivable. Right? It is something to be realized rather than simply conceptualized. Even the scriptures are giving some indication or some direction, but when you experience bliss, it's not the same as the word bliss on the page. Right? So, understanding is one-dimensional. Understanding is a function of the intellect. So, if you make a list of points as to how to start a car, and you memorize that list, then you understand what it means to start a car. Right? But when you actually get in the car, and you hold the steering wheel, you turn the ignition, and you do those things, then it becomes realized because it's a three-dimensional experience. It's something you experience with your whole being as opposed with just the intellect. So we can also understand that Krishna consciousness is more than a conception. It is something to be realized. If through utilizing these techniques, or even just developing, as we said, this attitude of constantly meditating, trying to think, how can we actually take over this planet? How can we actually imbibe Krishna consciousness in such a way that it is really deeply accepted by the world? Tremendous realizations will follow just on that endeavor. Right? Ideas, understandings, realizations, ways of living life differently, sharing Krishna consciousness differently. Prabhupada's godbrothers, they said that the difference between Prabhupada and us is that we all read in the scriptures that Lord Chaitanya said in every town, every village, this movement will be spread. Right? They said, but the only difference between us and Prabhupada is that only your Prabhupada actually believed it. Right? So it starts with that actual consideration that this is possible. We read so many things in the scriptures, but be honest, do you really believe these things? Do you really accept what the scriptures are saying? A simple test that you can do to see if you really believe what the scriptures are saying about this movement being spread is look at your activity. Because if you truly believe it, it will have an impact upon the way you behave and how you're spending your time. The way you think, what you say to people, what you are planning for your future, what you are envisioning for the future of this movement, for the future of civilization as a whole. So we should really question, how much do I really believe these statements? And secondly, how much do you want to experience Krishna consciousness? We explained in the previous presentation how Lord Chaitanya, he comes to it because he is Krishna, but in the mood and luster of Srimati Radharani, he wants to experience. Internal mission is to experience the love that Srimati Radharani has for Krishna. External mission is to spread the movement of Krishna consciousness. Both are spiritual. One is internal, one is external, but both of these missions are completely spiritual, and there's a connection. Right? The connection is that by pleasing Lord Chaitanya, one can actually understand Radha and Krishna. Sri Prabhupada, recognizing the fallen condition of living entities in Kali Yuga, he realized that in order to understand Radha and Krishna Leela, it will take a tremendous amount of service to purify the hearts of the living entities. So you have to give a service which is big enough and deep enough in its scope that will completely uproot all classes or all aspects of selfish desire. And by uprooting those selfish desires, one can really come to understand the pastimes of Radha and Krishna with deep purity. And that activity, that practice, that mission, which completely frees us of selfishness, is the mission of saving the entire world. That is actually the purpose. That is actually the practice which frees us of all of our impurities, whereby we can truly understand and deeply appreciate the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, which is a mission of this Krishna consciousness movement. Which is why Prabhupada, he gives one of his first books, his Krishna book. What is Krishna book? It is a summary study of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada, he says throughout the Bhagavatam, don't jump to the 10th canto. And he breaks his own instruction by giving 10th canto Bhagavatam summary study Krishna book. Okay? To make it clear that this is his mission. So there is an intimate connection between the two things. If you want to have a spiritual life which is like dynamic, exciting, that kind of, stirs you, that gets you up in the morning, excited, then you have to somehow be engaged in outreach. Not just outreach at the cost of your sadhana, outreach as an extension of the sadhana. It is an extension of our basic spiritual practices. Right? And that doesn't necessarily mean that now everyone has to, give up their job. Try and meditate on how through your work, through the skills you have, through the networks you have, through the sharing of ideas, through the assisting of different programs, that you are somehow offering or extending Krishna to other people in some way, shape or form. Whatever you can practically do, that is fine. Try and do that. Because it will lead for a very powerful, a very potent and dynamic spiritual movement, and also a very powerful caliber of spiritual personality. Right? There's no substitute for purity. Right? Even though I'm giving these techniques, don't think that now, we've got the techniques, we're going to take over the world. It doesn't work that way. Right? You can have the most brilliant ideas, techniques, but if there isn't some real purity, it's not going to work. Right? You'll just have some short-term material effect and the whole thing will fall apart. Or worse, it'll kind of just stimulate anarthas. Right now, I can guarantee that in the future we will have billionaires in our movement. We may have already, but in the future we'll have billionaires. If we don't have so many, in future there'll be more, many more. But unless there's also some purity, that same success will be the cause of a devotee's failure. So even though we're emphasizing techniques and different things, know that the basis is purity. Purity is what gives a lasting spiritual result. Right? But we can utilize all kinds of knowledge in order to assist us in spreading the movement. Okay. So as we said before, there are many places in our movement, unfortunately, where people are stuck. Right? And actually, it may be the case that in some areas of our own spiritual life, we are also stuck. We maybe find that spiritual life is a bit, not feeling so much taste for it right now, or it's not like it used to be. Right? Different things. One of the ways to move beyond that is to try and spread the movement, to share. The more you give spiritually, the more and more you constantly receive. So let's go on to discussing lateral thinking more specifically. So these techniques are actually came from a scholar, a Cambridge scholar called Edward de Bono. And this guy is, he's extremely successful. If you read his books, he's worked with so many of the Fortune 100 companies, and really all he's giving them is a very simple technique, right? In essence. And this is something devotees we could have come up with this technique. And the fact that he has this technique which is having so much impact means that we could also think of these kind of techniques. If you read his books, I'll be honest with you, most of the stuff that he's written in his books you don't even need to read. Right? He packs his book out with so many examples and so much superfluous information. But in essence, all he's giving is a simple way of jumping outside of our normal way of thinking and looking at things from a different angle. I'm going to give you a quick puzzle and just see if you can how you would answer this. This is from the kind of business example. So in Australia a few years ago, what would happen is the telephone companies, they would provide the phones to their particular customers. And for a local call, you would pay a flat rate, let's say 50 cents. Right? And you can make that call for as long as you like. Any local call, you pay one flat rate, 50 cents, and you speak for as long as you want. So all the companies were doing this same thing. Now one of the companies wanted to try and see how they could increase their competitiveness, or rather to make more money, let's say it like that, in terms of these phone calls. And they decided to use lateral thinking to try and come up with a solution. I want you to try and think, based upon the information, the limited information you have, how would the company, let's say that you were head of that company that wants to make a bit more money, or wants to be more successful, knowing that all the companies provide the phone to the customer and they all charge the same flat rate, 50 cents for a local call. How do you make more money? What are the ideas? How are you going to become more successful in that kind of market? Yes.
How to convince them to make more calls.
Okay, so you have to convince them, but what would you do specifically?
One thing to do is have these well, how do you encourage them? How do you encourage? Advertising should be like phone home or connect to your family, connect to your friends.
Okay, so for advertising, you try and encourage them to make more calls. Okay, good. Any other solutions? Yes.
Drop the cost of the calls, even just by a little bit. Then people switch to your company and you make more money in the end.
Okay, so one solution is advertising, two is you make the calls cheaper. Okay, any other solutions? Yes.
If you actually had a time limit on each call, so every time they pick up the phone, they have to pay.
Okay.
They'd have to pay the.
So it's a time limit, so they can't make a local call for as long as they like. There's a cap on that.
Yeah.
Any other solutions?
Offer some other type of service.
Offer some, like what?
If it's local, maybe offers international, long distance.
Okay.
Internet, whatever, something.
Okay, so you add some additional services to it. Yes.
Essentially the same thing. You just bundle up the service with something which will attract them. For example, you can say, okay, if you make these many calls, you get you enter a sweepstake, you get a free ticket to somewhere. So they want to achieve the goal and they want to call more just to be a part of the thing. So.
Incentives.
Incentives. Okay, good. So let's quickly run through some of these points. So advertising. Oh, so you had something to share.
Yeah, I would say make first 5 minutes only 10 cents.
Mm-hmm.
After that charge per minute or something.
Okay, so these are good answers. But I'll make a point about all of them. First of all, advertising. When you think about a solution, advertising usually comes up. Is that right? Is that fair? You look at how you market that particular product. So it's a standard way of thinking about it, isn't it? It's a normal way that you've seen about it. It's a normal paradigm. You look at advertising, you try and make it more attractive, you try and promote it more. When you look at the idea of cutting the cost of a call, again, it's within a normal paradigm, right? That's you're going to fiddle with the advertising, or you're going to fiddle with the pricing, right? What was the other solution? Incentives, right? So, or actually, Premananda was saying you kind of add some extra services, international calls, etc. So again, it's a normal way of thinking, right? So it's another incentives, adding some additional services. These are all within your normal stream of thought because you've seen these films before. You've seen changes in advertising campaigns, you've seen changes in pricing, you've seen additional services, you've seen incentive programs, right? Or even, first 5 minutes at a certain cost, then you graduate the cost. You've seen these things before. You're thinking, all these solutions are nice and they're really good and they could definitely work. But these are all within your normal realms of thinking. One point to consider about this is that if you do these things, isn't it going to make that company less competitive compared to their other company? I mean, some of these ideas may make them less competitive. For example, if you have to pay more money for advertising, there's a cost. You have to make sure that you recoup that in terms of more people using your service. If you add additional incentives, that's a cost. You have to make sure that people use that. If you didn't say this, but the other side is you could charge them more, right, to make more money. But then of course you may lose some competitiveness. I'll tell you what the company did. This company used lateral thinking. They considered that we provide, all these companies at the time, they provide the handset, the phone, for the people who are using it. And they thought, we want to change something, but we want to change something in such a way that we don't become less competitive. Or that we charge them less money, because if we charge less money, we're also going to make less, potentially. Right? They decided that with the handsets, they would fill the handsets with lead. They'll make the handsets very heavy. So the idea or the thinking behind that is that anyone who calls locally, they're paying a flat rate of 50 cents. But subconsciously, because the handset is heavier, they'll make shorter durations of calls. So when you get the handset, you're not consciously factoring in that this handset is heavier. It doesn't go into your criteria for evaluating which company you go with. It's completely unconscious. But because the handset's heavier, you're going to make more calls, and each call is going to be for a shorter period of time. So without knowing it, without them appearing less competitive, right? They still get the effect of being able to make you spend more money. That's lateral thinking.
That worked?
Yeah, it worked.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. That's lateral thinking. That means you're looking at it from a completely different angle to what anyone would actually ever consider.
It seems like it's very psychological.
It can be in some examples, but it's not always like that.
Right.
The point being that there are millions or literally unlimited numbers of angles of vision of perceiving something. And we have to start getting into that kind of understanding that just because things have been done a certain way, it doesn't mean they have to be maintained that way. Of course, there are some things which are essential, because we're speaking about religion and spirituality. There's some things that you can't change, right? But there are some secondary things which may be adjusted in terms of how things are delivered to make them more accessible to different people. Okay? And that's what we have to rack our brains for. By this, we can come up with ideas which can make the movement literally billions of pounds or dollars to spread the movement. And by this same means also, we can come up with very innovative ways to get people to accept the message of Krishna consciousness. Or to assist society in accepting the principles of Krishna consciousness in some way, shape or form. I was utilizing these techniques looking at life coaching. So just to give another example. So the idea of a life coach is that you pay someone money to assist you to achieve your particular goals, to stay focused and to accomplish more. So the whole idea, the normal paradigm is the life coach is there, the client is there, the client is paying the life coach money in order to achieve the goal. In terms of lateral thinking, the two tools that we're going to be sharing with you today, one is called intermediate impossible. Right? So you may want to write this down. Intermediate impossible. So what you do is you have two things. First of all, you have the area of concern, or the challenge, or the problem, if you want to call it that. Whatever you're looking at, whatever you want to come up with some creative lateral thinking ideas about, you have that down first. Then you connect it with something that doesn't make sense. Many times when people have come up with a creative idea, it's because they've been exposed to something which is outside their normal realm of experience, and they link that thing with something which is completely unrelated, and it sparks off a new idea. So this intermediate impossible means that you write down, so to use this example, the statement for the intermediate impossible would be, or the concern would be, how to make life coaching more attractive to clients, right? That's your challenge. Then you would come up with a statement which doesn't make sense, but which you can use to bounce off your challenge or your concern to come up with a new idea. So a statement that doesn't make sense is that the life coach should pay the client money, right? That goes against the idea, because the life coach wants to earn money, he's earning a living or she's earning a living. But then you have this statement, you made it up, it doesn't make sense, it's not logical. The life coach should pay the client for the sessions. And then when you bring the two things together, you try to use them to spark off any new ideas. Well, when I did this exercise, the idea that came to mind is that, let's say that you're a life coach and you charge your client £20, or let's say $20 per session. As an added incentive to the client and to make the life coaching more attractive, you can tell the client that you're paying me $20 a session. At the end of every session, we set goals that you're going to act on, action points. For every single action point that you achieve, you get money back, right? So in other words, it's an added financial or economic incentive to the client that the more successful you become, the less you have to pay the life coach. Do you see how I've arrived at that kind of thinking? We've utilized a statement which doesn't make sense, and we connect it to something that we're concerned about, and we try to see the two things together in order to spark off new ways of perceiving that particular concern. Right? So this technique is called intermediate impossible. So if you had any kind of problem, any kind of area, it doesn't have to be a problem actually, just to emphasize that. Lateral thinking innovation means that if it ain't broke, still try and see how you can make it better. Right? We become stagnated sometimes because when things are going well, that actually becomes a problem for the devotee. And we don't want to wait till Krishna shakes us up before we move on or develop. The trick of spiritual life is to always see how to improve. What we do as a movement, what we do individually, always try to see how to improve. If we wait for something to go wrong, or we think that things are going okay, then we will lose our position spiritually. Right? And that's actually what's happened to our movement. One of the reasons why our movement is not growing properly, or growing as it should do, is because we actually had a bit of arrogance in the early days. We're the only spiritual movement, we're the only Vaishnava movement, we've got the highest truth. But then so many other groups come on the scene, so many other traditions innovate, and we just become left behind. So even if we're doing okay, we should always look to see how we can improve. Right? They are saying that actually the Japanese culture, I think it was the Japanese or one of the Oriental cultures, Edward de Bono was writing how one of the reasons why they're so successful is that in their tradition they don't have this idea that if it ain't broke, then don't try to fix it. They have the idea that even when things are good, you should always try and improve. But the Western paradigm is more a paradigm of if it works, just stick with it. Okay? And therefore, unless something goes wrong, people don't try and change. Or we don't try and change our paradigms or do things in a better way. Because we've got nothing, but the problem with that is we can't see how efficient something is in comparison to what it could be. Do you see that point? We're seeing something and it's working, but we don't know that actually there's another million ideas out there which will make that same thing 100 times more successful. Okay? And that's what lateral thinking does. It starts to generate these ideas, these other possibilities. So this first technique, as we said, is called intermediate impossible. You write down your area of concern or your goal. I wish to, I wish to see how we can, how we can team up with the Christians or make use of the Christians' networks in order to spread Krishna consciousness. Some goal, right? Then you write down something which is an intermediate impossible. So an intermediate impossible could be a statement like, we get all the Christians to promote Krishna consciousness to their friends, right? It doesn't sound like a realistic thing, does it? Right? You're going to go to some staunch Christian church and tell them, so I think you guys should start telling your congregation to chant Hare Krishna. Right? But that intermediate impossible statement, along with your goal, can spark off new ideas. Because you consider your goal in relation to the different principles, ideas, aspects, concepts from that statement which doesn't sound possible. So let's look at this again. So this idea that we want to get the Christians to promote the chanting, or let's say the chanting of the holy names. So what does that mean? It means that, well, one idea that comes off the top of my head is that there may be some Christians, and there are some Christians who actually had very strong connection with Krishna consciousness. Right? So then we can actually go through our networks and find those Christians who are in prominent positions who had strong links to Krishna consciousness. And then we can actually use their networks to actually do more things to spread the holy name in that sense. That's one idea. Another is that we could do an interfaith program or a series of interfaith programs linking the name of Christ and Krishna for the kind of networking value that it has. Right? So then we actually do something very much on etymology. Etymology means, the origin of, or the breakdown of different words, showing how the two things are interconnected, and therefore, anyone who's a Christian, they can say Krishna's name and without feeling that it's alien to their religious tradition. There's a whole range of ideas. I mean, that's something that we could do as an exercise, but I'm just throwing something off the top of my head. Another way that you can come up with new ideas is what's called random juxtaposition. This is a second technique. And then we'll do some exercises to kind of experience this a bit more. The random juxtaposition, this technique works in the following way. Again, you write down your area of concern or your goal. And then you'd get another random word or concept which you would connect or which you would bring into the association of your goal and see what ideas spark up from that cooperative connection, those two concepts together. So what Edu de Bono suggests is that you get a dictionary. Let's say a particular goal is you want to find out how to you want to find out how to get Middle America to follow to really follow the principle of no gambling, right? You want to really encourage or promote the idea of no gambling to Middle America. So then that's your goal. You get a dictionary. You open the dictionary randomly, and the first word that you see on the page that you open up, you use that word, use that concept, and you juxtapose it. You bring it against your particular statement or your particular goal. And again, these two things are unrelated, but it's that unrelatedness which will spark off new ideas. And you see what ideas come. The whole idea of this, the whole idea of these tools, is that you are bringing things together which are not normally connected, in order to see their creative potential for jumping you outside of your normal way of thinking into a completely different avenue of thinking. Now, when you do this, it's not that every new idea that you come up with will be a good idea. Right? But as you do this, the opportunity, the possibilities, the number of ideas that you have to choose from become much greater. And then you can see which ones are valuable, which ones are not valuable, which ones you will use, which ones you will neglect. Does that make sense? Now, one other consideration I was going to say. There's three aspects which I spoke about before. First, there's the potential, there's the attitude, that even if you've got an idea which is a solution which works, there's always a million other possible solutions. Right? We have to hold this kind of concept in our mind, that just because we're doing something one way, it's not the only way it can be done. It's not even necessarily the best way it can be done. There may be a whole range of other ideas or possibilities. Second, the intermediate impossible, that we have a goal that we want to achieve, and we come up with a statement which does not make sense. When you make the intermediate impossible statement, you can make it in a number of ways. One way is you make a statement which is the complete opposite of what you wish to achieve normally. So with the coach wants to make money. So his statement is the coach should pay the client, which is complete opposite. Another, it could be that the coach should kidnap the client and hold him for ransom. Right? It doesn't make sense, right? I mean, you're not gonna if you advertise that you're a life coach and you're prepared to kidnap your clients, you're not gonna get many clients, right? But as a statement to generate new ideas, you could write that down. The coach should kidnap the client, and then you could see how those two things go together, or what ideas are sparked from those two ideas. So the coach should kidnap the client. It could be that the client has like a set period of coaching, right? Because they say the coach should kidnap the client and hold him for ransom. And you could say that actually I'm going to coach you in a particular set of goal or in a particular set of activities for a particular period of time, and we're going to also set a particular result that you're going to achieve as a result of this. And I won't take any money unless that lasting result is achieved. In other words, you hold the person for ransom.